Welcome to Talent Hub TV episode 11. We're here with Hiral Sawla today, so we've got a number of different topics to talk about. Hiral has played a number of different roles over the years in the Salesforce ecosystem. So can you tell us a bit about your career before Salesforce and then your career in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Definitely. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure.
I just finished my last role as a delivery director just 2 weeks ago. But I started my career with a hardware engineer, so I was actually assembling computers. I was putting up the LAN systems for media companies. This was before my engineering, actually.
Sure.
After my engineering, I actually moved into software engineering. So I started my career with Infosys, one of the largest GSIs back in India. And then I actually kind of slowly moved into Java. Back at Infosys, we used to work for a company called AT&T, which is one of the largest telecom provider in the US.
Yeah.
And we were working on primitive technologies like C, C++, Java, Unix, and some of the code was written in early 1980s.
Okay.
Just after when C++ was invented, and we were actually kind of maintaining and enhancing that code from 2005 onwards. So
Sure.
The code base was 25 years plus old. And it was an interesting, challenging project as well, because we were working on a lot of on-premise legacy applications, black box applications, no UI as such, and we had to do a lot of screen scraping to pull the data. So as part of that particular role, I got an opportunity to work with the customer in the US. I spent about 3 years in the US working with the customer as well.
Sure.
I remember around April 2011, I actually met a friend in Chicago who actually introduced me to Salesforce. So we spoke about Salesforce briefly. I did not have a kind of inclination to move on Salesforce immediately as such. But what happened is, fast forward 3 months, I moved back to India and Axis approached me. So one of the founders at Axis was my first manager at Infosys.
Okay.
And that's how I actually kind of got introduced to Salesforce from Axis. So I joined Axis in 2012.
Okay, and then obviously you have since then played a number of different positions. So can you tell us a bit about those roles and how they came about?
Yeah, so when I started with Axis, I joined the India team or the offshore team. I was a technical lead back then. I was leading a team of QAs and developers, but I used to frequently come to Sydney to meet the customers, gather the requirements as such, and then go back and pass it on to the wider audience. So because of the frequent travel to Sydney, I decided to actually move to Sydney permanently in 2013. And since then, I have played numerous roles. So my last role obviously was leading the entire delivery practice for the organization. But throughout these last 6 years, I have been an engagement manager. I have been solution architect on a lot of projects. I got an opportunity to set up and build entire managed services practice for the organization as well. I was part of sales team, pre-sales, responsible for hiring and recruiting as well.
Sure.
So I have kind of played multiple roles, but always my motto has been to be that customer advocate and customer trusted advisor.
Sure.
So what I wanted to do always was the best solution for the customer. And throughout my kind of tenure at Axis, I have been kind of in touch with the platform as well. Even if I was not kind of day-to-day involved with the customers as such, I always wanted to be on top of the platform and hands-on as well. So throughout this particular period, I have accumulated about 11 certifications, and I'm preparing for more certifications as well.
Sure.
So hopefully in next few weeks, I would get more certifications under my belt as well.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it has been more of a customer trusted advisor and customer success or advocate as such.
And I think that obviously you've performed lots of different roles that each have different challenges. Part of that was recruitment, part of it's pre-sales and so on. So I think you've got a really good view of the different aspects of a Salesforce project from beginning to end and challenges of that. So when you first started in the Salesforce world, what was a typical project? What did it look like?
So yeah, as in when at least I started my Salesforce career, most of the projects were smaller projects, I would say, as in the duration of those projects would be few weeks or maybe few months. And I started in 2012, 2013. So primarily Salesforce was more of a CRM, and a lot of focus was on Sales Cloud side of business. So most of my early projects were on Sales Cloud side, and typical duration would be few weeks or few months, and a lot of customization involved because the platform has evolved over the period of time now. So there were a lot of things which were not available earlier, so we had to kind of custom develop a lot of things as well. Versus now, what I've seen is the projects have changed a lot in terms of both complexity and the overall duration of the projects as well.
Sure.
Because the platform has evolved so much, there has been so much involvement of Service Cloud, Community Cloud, Marketing, Pardot, and all the other clouds as well. The projects are getting more and more complicated as well.
Sure.
So that's one of the changes that I have seen.
Yeah, I think every month there's a new project kicking off across Australia, and everything's getting more and more complex, challenging. There's new roles coming into the Salesforce world. We're seeing things like DevOps coming into Salesforce, which you wouldn't have seen when it was just a Sales Cloud project for a couple of weeks. So, what's been the biggest for the evolution of the platform? Can you pinpoint like the features that you've most enjoyed working with over the years?
So, in the recent past, most of the customers now want their customers to be kind of self-sufficient. So I'm seeing a lot of traction of community projects as such, and then underpinned by Service Cloud. So it is now moving more towards that customer-facing or end customer-facing sort of application. The platform has evolved so much that previously Salesforce was considered as a disruptor, versus it's now considered as more of innovator or a market leader as well. And the introduction of Customer 360, introduction of My Trailhead now is going to be of one single enterprise level application for the customers to invest in one application rather than multiple legacy applications.
Yeah, for sure. Now you mentioned initially you were doing lots of customization, lots of coding to make the platform as fit for purpose for the customer. I know you've worked a lot with offshore development teams, and that can obviously play a key role, an important role for customers. So how can offshoring really benefit a customer, and who is it for?
So as an offshoring or augmented team has been there for years and years. As in throughout my 15 years of IT career, I have been part of onshore and offshore model or kind of ecosystem itself. The advantage, obviously, whenever we talk about offshore, the perspective is it's just the cost benefit. As in, obviously, it is going to reduce the overall operational cost for the customer. You don't have to invest in kind of full-time employees. You need not actually have any overhead operational cost. And obviously, the daily rate card compared to someone hiring locally is going to be kind of lower than someone hiring at offshore as such. But I don't think that is the only advantage or benefit for customer to actually go with the offshore sort of model. I think what advantage the customer would have in this day is more of a kind of accessing the talent pool or the technical talent pool, I would say, or expertise from offshore model or augmented team. The offshore or augmented team doesn't have to be in specific country. It can be a global pool of resources as well. Considering, as in, if you go by the statistics, there are only about 2,200 certified professionals in Australia, versus there are about 53,000 certified professionals in Salesforce ecosystem globally. So you do see that sort of gap as well in the market. It's really difficult to kind of find talented pool of resources in ANZ region. So that is one of the primary reason I think the customers are now open for outsourcing their work, irrespective of the location of the team. What the customer wants is the best solution for their budget or investment as such. So I have seen throughout this last 6 years, the perspective of the customer now changing as well in terms of outsourcing. As long as the deliverables and the timelines are met, I think the customer is happy with the output. For the budget that they are actually spending.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, right? Is getting the outcome and the deliverable. It has to be met, and the timelines. So there is an element of risk if you're entering into any arrangement, onshore or offshore. So what should customers that are considering going offshore with a piece of work or a project or a managed service arrangement, what are the considerations and things that they should be aware of up front? What should they look for?
So in terms of the challenges, I would say in this sort of model, the biggest challenge that I have faced over the period of time is communication. Okay, so obviously, because if you are at customer location, if your team is sitting in front of the customer, and you get first-hand information from the customer, and when it actually kind of trickles down to the remote team as such, there are chances of either misinterpretation, assumption, or lack of communication altogether.
Sure.
So I think communication is one of the key aspect of working with the team which is remote
Sure.
or not co-located as such. And it can be within Australia as well. We have executed so many projects which are either based in Melbourne, for example, but the team is located in Sydney. And you don't have that opportunity to be in front of the customer every time as well. So in terms of communication, obviously, period of time, we have had so many tools now, which we never had in the past, as in we never had kind of live documents like say either Google or Confluence, etc., where you can start making notes which can be reflected onto the remote team as well immediately or at real time. You didn't have a lot of tools in terms of setting up video conference or screen sharing in the past as well. So all the tools like GoToMeeting, for example, Hangouts or TeamViewer, for example, in terms of screen sharing, recording, etc., are going to be beneficial for collaboration, and that reduces a lot of kind of communication or miscommunication, I would say, going forward. So that one aspect definitely needs to be taken account for. The other thing about the remote team or augmented team is what I've seen in the past with a lot of other organizations or partners is the remote team is never considered as part of the core team, which is obviously a misconception. It should be such that that entire team, irrespective of the location, should be considered as one single team.
Agreed.
Both from onshore team point of view and customers point of view. I've seen in the past that there are decisions taken at onshore or at customer level without actually kind of engaging the offshore or remote team as well, which doesn't work well in a team sort of structure.
Sure.
So I think that team collaboration is another key aspect, as in timely appreciation and feedback needs to be given. A kind of constructive feedback needs to be given to the remote team, and vice versa, constructive feedback should be taken on board as well. How to make a successful project team as such.
Okay.
And lastly, I would say the team combination. So irrespective of the location of the team, any Salesforce sort of project would have an architect, a project manager, or an engagement manager, a technical lead, a functional and technical consultant, a developer, a QA. So that combination is going to be static. But in terms of the resources, where those resources are to be located, and that combination will not be a kind of cookie cutter for any project as such. So depending on the type of project, you need to plan it out. Sometimes you would need a heavy offshore team. If it's too much custom development where you need a lot of technical resources, it's beneficial to have a heavy offshore team versus if it is more of a road mapping or strategic sort of exercise, it would be probably more heavy onshore team.
Yeah.
And in some situations, you might have a combination where you need key resources from offshore in front of the customer at key intervals of project as such.
Sure.
And then they go back and pass on that information to the wider audience.
Yeah, okay. So I guess where risks come in is where a company are offshoring development and they don't really understand the platform themselves here. They don't have someone that can say this is how it needs to be done, or this is this is the outcome we're looking to achieve. And then offshoring work that you don't really understand yourself, I guess that's where communication and output issues arise. Yep. So is it important to have someone either locally or steering it from a location that has a true understanding of what they're looking to achieve and how it can be done?
Yeah, there should definitely be a kind of point of contact from onshore point of view as well. You can't just kind of expect everything to be passed on to offshore and then you are going to get the finished product.
Sure.
So you need to obviously have that timely touch point with the offshore team, either on a weekly basis or a fortnightly basis. Keep a track of whatever is handed over to them. Is it getting actually executed on time? Are they on right track?
Yeah.
Are there any assumptions which are being made without actually consulting the onshore counterpart or customer as well?
Sure.
So those are definitely things that you need to kind of take care of.
Yeah.
But nowadays what I have also seen is previously the customer did not have access to a lot of information about the platform as well. So they were kind of completely unaware of the capabilities of the platform.
Sure.
Versus now, because of the introduction of Trailhead and gamification of the actual knowledge management of the platform itself, the customers themselves are so much aware of the platform that you get into a situation where the customers would have done their homework,
Yeah.
and then you are actually questioned or challenged about the platform, which is a very healthy argument, I would say.
Yeah.
When you're in front of the customer, that customer themselves know what they want, how probably they can achieve it,
Yeah.
but they don't have capability or bandwidth to actually kind of implement
Sure.
it as well. So it's a good environment, a healthy environment nowadays,
Yeah.
versus which was there about 5 or 6 years back, I would say.
Okay.
The customers are now aware what platform can provide actually.
Sure. I guess things like World Tour, Dreamforce, they help the customer see
Definitely.
the end goal.
Definitely.
And yeah, all the terminology is out there. People can just kind of do some research and get a good understanding themselves.
Yeah, I think Trailhead has changed the understanding of the platform, not only at the consultants level, but at the customer level as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Because previously, when we used to kind of execute these smaller projects, and because of obviously there were a lot of limitations back then as well, it was difficult for the consultants to actually convince the customer of things which were either achievable out of platform or out of box as well, or things which were not even achievable as well because
Yeah.
of certain limitations. So now the customers have access to all the information as well.
Sure.
So we just need to kind of direct them to write kind of either videos or trailheads or material as such for them to even understand what are the limitations of the platform and what are upcoming features or enhancements on the platform as well.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. And you've grown big teams in the Salesforce ecosystem. You mentioned before that in ANZ there's definitely a shortage of candidates, but aside from just lack of bodies,
Yep.
what are the biggest challenges you've faced or people face when hiring for Salesforce professionals?
See, yes, it is a valid kind of issue, as in the platform is growing exponentially, but the talent base to actually kind of provide the services is limited. And because of the recent visa changes as well, it's not kind of making it easier for the partners ecosystem as well to actually kind of get on board talented pool of resources. So one thing that I did in my past roles was not only look for Salesforce consultants. So we did kind of take gamble on a lot of key hires in the past, where they either came from CRM background, like Siebel or Sugar CRM, and get them up to scale or get them up to speed on Salesforce platform. Or if you're coming from technical background, if you have worked in the past on Java, .NET, for example, getting them trained on Apex was probably much easier than getting someone to train directly on Salesforce platform as well. So that was one of the key thing that we actually looked at.
So why do you think people are hesitant to do that? Because for us, we like obviously this is the this is what we do. We find people for roles just in the Salesforce space, and it would be a much easier job for us if more companies had that view and that mindset. Let's transition people. Let's bring people across. And why is that? Why are people hesitant to do that?
I think and again, this might be just my personal opinion, one of the key reason is because if you hire someone, you might want to see immediate utilization and billability for that particular resource. So I think as partner ecosystem, we need to kind of change our mindset as well.
Mm-hmm.
We need to invest in good resources, which are going to be then helpful for us for years and years down the line as such. As in, if we kind of think of a short-term goal or short-term achievement as such, you can actually kind of hire someone who has Salesforce experience and background and get them to kind of kickstart a project immediately. Versus if you have to kind of think of a longer-term plan or strategy for the organization, the training and enablement is a key aspect for any organization to have that kind of resource strength for future projects. So one of the things that obviously during hiring process I was very conscious of was not to be reactive, as in plan well in advance. Because what would happen is whenever you come across an important project from from customer, for example, you might want to kind of resource immediately. but you have limited kind of resource pool as well.
Sure.
You need to plan a lot in advance. You need to kind of look out for the talent which is available in the market. Try to grab that talent if possible. Have that frank chat with your management. Try to get an approval from the management. Try to convince the management if you see that this particular person is going to be helpful in future, if not immediately as such. So you should not just shut your doors in terms of looking for a good talent in the market. I think that's one of the key aspects that I've seen in the past.
Yeah, and so for if we look at some of the people that you have hired from a non-Salesforce background, they've gone on to be established architects. And how long does it take? And everyone's different, right?
That's
so
right.
we can't say it's going to take 3 months.
That's right.
But from your experience, someone coming from a non-Salesforce background, maybe another CRM or a good solid Java developer coming into a development role, how long before you can be confident that they are able to do the job?
So what as in from my previous past roles, what I've seen is it takes less than 3 months, to be very frank, to be very productive as well. And that's where you have to kind of hire good talented people who were really kind of superstar in their space.
Yeah.
You cannot expect someone who was average in their space to outshine and outperform in this. There might be few candidates or resources who would probably kind of outperform, but that's a bit of gamble.
Yeah.
Versus if you kind of take someone who has been really good, sort of an architect on one CRM, for them to kind of move on to other CRM, the concepts are pretty much same. It's just that certain terminologies might be different, slight data model would be different, and obviously every platform comes with either their limitations or feature sets, for example. So that would change probably. But picking up Salesforce nowadays, I don't think it's a tough task for anyone. Sort of background, technical background. Then picking up Salesforce, I don't think. What I've seen is people have been productive and billable in just a month or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it can be done.
So it depends on the role as well. If you are expecting someone to be a lone architect on a project who does not have Salesforce background, that's not going to work out. But if you throw in those sort of resources with a big team, where you have a team of 5 or 6 team members, and those team members can actually learn from the other team members, they will pick up immediately.
Okay.
Versus just kind of keeping them on a study track as such and just having that theoretical knowledge, it's not going to help immediately. So you need to give them kind of practical experience, practical problem statements to relate to the platform as well.
Yeah, agreed. I can only imagine how many people you've interviewed over the 6 or so years. What's worked well for you through an interview process to cut out the good from the bad?
Yeah. So again, obviously, Salesforce is a kind of hot topic these days in the market, and everyone wants to kind of join the bandwagon. So some of the things are pretty easy to get on the platform as well. As in what I've seen in the past versus now, getting certified, it's not that challenging or difficult compared to what it was in the past, because previously you did not have online material available. So it was based on your practical knowledge, hands-on knowledge as such, versus now you have so much online material available, you can still get certified. I'm not saying that people who are certified might not actually kind of be able to do their jobs, but getting certification, my personal opinion, it's not that difficult. Obviously, the architect level certifications are difficult. You need to kind of understand the overall platform, but the consultant ones are pretty kind of easy to get these days. So obviously, whenever you're kind of interviewing a person, just don't go with the certification aspect only, but also understand what practical knowledge do they have, what sort of implementations have they done. So if they have actually kind of completed Service Cloud and Community Cloud project versus on their certification, they just have admin, that's a gap I would see. Okay. I know that there are individuals who have personal preference not to go through the certification program, but nowadays all the customers are asking for that validation. That if you have implemented for these many years, can you actually kind of validate that with certifications as well? So that is one key aspect. Also, over the period of time during the interview process, we had to kind of change the process for every candidate as well. So depending on the candidate, if it's for a solution architect or a technical architect sort of role, we used to give them a kind of small assignment and kind of come up with the solution then and there itself, or maybe give them half an hour to prepare for the solution, because that's what is going to happen with the real life scenario as well. And it was a very kind of toned down version of CTA, for example.
Yeah.
It kind of prepares them for next challenges as well.
Sure.
And there might not be a kind of right or wrong answer as such. It's just the thought process that we need to understand.
How they think and
That's
how
right.
they communicate.
And similarly for tech BA or a functional consultant sort of role, we used to give them Salesforce assignment to actually kind of do an assignment on the platform on a dev org and then just come and present.
Yeah.
Again, the idea was not to actually test the Salesforce platform knowledge as such. It's how you actually kind of implement it,
Sure.
how you present it back to the customer. So
Yeah.
it was more of a role play.
Sure.
And are you able to kind of gauge the stakeholders? Are you able to answer difficult questions? So the idea was never to kind of actually understand the Salesforce knowledge as well.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's very helpful. I think not everyone does that, and I think if more people did put a challenge like that in place, they'd get better results at the other end of it.
Yeah, and you can actually figure out their platform knowledge, but asking simple questions. I mean, it doesn't have to be kind of detailed list of questionnaire to kind of validate their Salesforce knowledge. If you just kind of try to gauge with few questions as such, and the beauty about Salesforce platform is you need to be up to date after every 4 months. So you need to kind of go through the release exam. So you can just ask what were the few features in the last release, for example. Those sort of small questions will actually kind of help you if that person is actually kind of well acquainted with the platform or not.
Yeah, I think the gamble comes when people are just relying, like there might be an end user company and they're relying that someone's got certification and then aren't asking any knowledge-based questions themselves. And then, that is a gamble. Like we said, it's easier nowadays to get the certification. So I think for end user companies, it's actually harder to pick the right person because you were going through an assessment and you know Salesforce, whereas the person on the end user side might not. So I think it's being aware of not just relying on certification is a big thing for them.
But I think as a recruiter as well, you have started a Salesforce online sort of test as well. So the customers can actually rely on you as well, who are going to kind of pre-screen some of the resources and candidates as well, so that they would at least trust you that these guys have basic knowledge of Salesforce.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me is you just like I don't know Salesforce myself, so I try and cover every angle possible to make sure that anyone I'm representing, I'm confident that they can do what they say they can. So over the years, you've not only hired a lot of people, but you've delivered a lot of projects. So what are the common pitfalls that you see on Salesforce projects nowadays with the more complex systems and processes that are in place? And what can people do to avoid those?
Yeah, so obviously there has been a lot of learning from so many projects that I have delivered. But as in, I don't want to get into the technical side as such, because every customer's business process would be different.
Of course.
But two key things that I have seen across the board, most of the customers, I would say, is buy-in from the executives. So you need to get the buy-in from the executives from day one. So what has been perceived is the executive role has been just to kind of sign off on the dotted line and then pass it on to the actual project managers or program managers to actually execute the project. But I don't think their role kind of finishes off there. They need to be continuously engaged. The change has to come from top. So we need to get the buy-in from the executives. We need to involve them for playbacks or any specific kind of milestones as well. And we need them to kind of create this buzz around the change or the product or the application. They should be able to kind of execute some small internal competition like naming the application or coming up with the name for the overall program, for example, and then kind of handing over some small gift vouchers or gift cards. If they are the true, I would say, advocates of the change as such, then it's easier for everyone to kind of adopt the system. So that's one key thing which I have seen missing in a lot of initiatives. And the second one would be the change management and the user training part of the project as such. Some of the customers would think that we will actually take care of the user training during user acceptance phase, which is frankly not a good mindset to have. As in, I've seen a lot of projects failing or the users not adopting the system because the management was of the opinion that once the system has been given to the users, they will be able to kind of pick it up automatically themselves.
Yeah.
Which is a myth, I would say.
Yeah.
So the change management and the user training has to be kind of thought of from day one as well.
Sure.
Along with your technical aspect and the project management aspect, change management. I think right now, a lot of customers are realizing that.
Yeah.
And they are using that change management sort of role either internally or from partner ecosystem to its full effect now. But previously we did not have that sort of role in the big program of work,
Sure.
I would say.
Yeah, I think like way back, Salesforce was something someone could buy with their credit card and off they go.
Yep.
But yeah, it's definitely something that needs that executive level buy-in now and continued buy-in.
Yep.
And it's a massive transformation now. It's not just a couple of users in a room somewhere.
Definitely not. Yeah.
So, what are you most excited about from the Salesforce platform moving forward?
So obviously the platform has grown exponentially, and there are a lot of key clouds now being added. Now previously it was just sales and service. Obviously over the period of years, you have community marketing, you have now FSL, CPQ, commerce, health cloud, integration cloud. Yeah, so the sky's the limit right now. And customer 360 and my trailhead coming up as well. So obviously it is going to be an enterprise. It is already an enterprise level platform now. It's not just a CRM. So in terms of excitement, obviously yes. Previously when I actually moved to Sydney, the Salesforce team was really small team. Now they are occupying, I think, 2 floors in the Salesforce offices building, and they have so many satellite offices in Sydney. So there is definitely a focus from Salesforce to grow in this particular region. And obviously the latest announcement of 50 million venture, Salesforce venture investment for ANZ region specific investment, I'm sure there is going to be a lot of focus in this region going forward. So yeah, pretty excited. I think it's going to be a pretty exciting time for everyone in the Salesforce ecosystem.
For sure. Yeah, and I think everyone felt that at World Tour. It was an exciting event, and
I think they have about 13,000 or so attendees as well.
It's crazy. Hey?
Yeah.
So look, we're really grateful for you coming on,
Thank you.
and we're excited to see what the future holds. So we'll link back to your LinkedIn profile, and people can follow you there. But thanks very much, and
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.